All right, everybody, so you should be seeing the screen now. Again, I want to thank you so much for coming. I think this is our most registered for webinar to date, so I'm so excited that you guys are here. We did this one last year, and it was a big hit. I'm hoping it's just as much of a hit today. So if you haven't attended one of these webinars before, typically what I do is I go through the entire, quote, sales cycle of a child care center, and we try to make it better with you. So we try to perfect how you're doing on your website and the incoming leads there, and then how you answer the phone, and then when they get to the tour. So I usually walk you through the whole process. But today, in the spirit of St. Patrick's Day, I really want to just help you focus on the tour, which is by far the best opportunity that you have to close the deal. You know, the phone call is really important, but when they walk in your door, that is the best opportunity you have to get them to say yes to you. So I think we really need to focus on that part of the bucket and making it the least leaky. So that's what we're going to do today, is really just focus on the tour aspect of this. All right. If you haven't met me already, this is who I am. It's very rare that some of you haven't met me, but let me introduce myself. So believe it or not, I was not always selling childcare software, although it feels like I've been doing it my whole life. Before this, I came from the same place you did. I was on the front lines, director of a child care center, a couple of national brands for about 8 years. I really, really loved it. I started because that big, cute kid right there, when he came around, I realized that infant care is very expensive, and I couldn't afford it. So I thought, well, I won't be a kindergarten teacher. I'll go be a director. And when I started, you know, my why was really about the kids and the education they were getting. And then all of a sudden I started really liking the relationship building I was doing with parents. So I got into more of the tours and the open houses, and that was really my thing. And then I was lucky enough to start using childcare CRM in our school, and all of a sudden I started feeling like I needed to reach out to my other director friends and save them from the binders of death. So that's how I landed here. But when I did come to our company, as much as I think they loved me, they did say, you know, we've got to put you through some formal sales training because you've been touring, but you don't really know a lot about how to effectively sell, which was true-ish. So I went to Sandler, which is an official sales training course, and the whole time I was there, all I could think was, I need to write a book, write a manual, do something to take what we were doing in the child care center and what actually works and is proven and blend them together. And so that's really what I've tried to do in some of these webinars. So that's my background. That's why I hope you can believe what I'm selling to you today. Anyhow, so let's jump if my PowerPoint will let me. All right, so I think the first part of this process before you start any tour is to ask yourself if you believe. Okay, do you believe that you have the best center on your street, in your neighborhood, on your block? Do you actually believe that it's the best one? You know, again, you guys have seen me out on the road at all these trade shows. I work in a lot of exhibit halls, and I'm telling you that the most effective of us in there, we use our product. Guys, the email that you got from me today, it came from Child Care CRM, because yes, there are other CRM systems out there that may be a better fit for what I'm trying to do, but I just believe that mine's the easiest to use, and it works and it does what I need it to do. So I never switched, even when I came from the center to this company. I use my system. The guys out there selling the sanitizers and the chemicals, they use it at home, right? Those are the most effective salespeople that I see. It's because we actually believe that our product is the best. So, you know, would you enroll your own children at your school? Would you enroll your grandchildren? Would you tell your very best friend that she should drive 20 minutes to come to your school because it really is the best that she's going to find? Do you believe that? And if you don't, we really got to start there and figure out how we can get you re-energized and really believing that your school and your center is the best that it absolutely can be. All right, so let's start with like the curb appeal, right? Do you believe that when somebody drives past your building that it's the most charming, that they'd want to stop and find out what's happening inside? How about when somebody pulls up into the parking lot for a tour? Do you ask your teachers to park in the back row so that there's some front row spots? I've seen a lot of you guys that have had like visitor parking signs, just dedicated spots, so that when somebody shows up for a visit, they want to come inside. They want to come in the doors. They already feel welcomed, and into this school. How about your classrooms? When you walk around those classrooms, do you feel like they are the most stocked? Do you feel like the kids are learning in there? Do you see a bunch of toys on a very top shelf? The teacher put them up there because she was sick of them fighting over them. That's not what you want to see. So when you walk into the classrooms, do you believe that that is a classroom that every 3-year-old would want to walk into and have a great time in? And how about the teachers? Do you feel like every teacher is in the right seat? Do you feel like the teachers in their classrooms are the most nurturing, the most loving? They're not just there because they fill the 6:30 shift. Are they really in the right spot? Do you believe that? If you don't, we need to reevaluate, because it's very hard to sell and tour something that you don't believe in. And the kids, are those the healthiest, safest, happiest, smartest, cutest 3-year-olds in the neighborhood? The answer should be yes. They are definitely the healthiest, safest, cutest, everything. There's no reason that any 3-year-old in our community should not be in that preschool classroom. You have to believe that. Because the truth is that most people are buying a product not because they actually believe in it at first glance. It's because the person selling it believes in it. So, this weekend, when you're out at Target or Costco or Sam's or whatever you're doing, and you walk past the lady giving samples out, she's got the sample of salsa, and actually at first glance you don't believe it's the best, right? If you're anything like me, my instinct is to say, like, well, you're out here pushing your product, you must have to do some work. It must not be the best salsa in the store. But then all of a sudden, while you're taking the sample and giving it to your kids, she's telling you, like, what ingredients it has in it and how she's used it other places. She made a breakfast burrito with it. She puts it out at every party. And then all of a sudden you're like, this salsa is pretty good. It's because she believed in the product, not because you did. So you got to remember that parents are walking into your building waiting for you to convince them why they need to enroll there. All right, so let's talk about one of the most important steps, being prepared, right? Whether it's a walk-in tour or a scheduled tour, are you ready for them? And, you guys that are using the CRM system, you're sending out confirmation emails of these tours. You're setting up reminders for them. Are you setting yourself a reminder? When you go set up that tour task, are you saying, hey, CRM, remind me in 10 minutes that I have a tour today? And then, use those features. Give yourself reminders. Be prepared for those tours. Stocked and ready. I think that one's really important for those of you who are, giving tour brochures out. You've got packets of information. You've spent a lot of time, or somebody has spent a lot of time designing what goes into those tour packets. So every morning when you get there, open that back drawer up. Make sure that it's stocked, that you're not scrambling when a tour walks in to say, oh my gosh, I need to get a rate sheet and a registration sheet. Is everything stocked and ready at 6:30 a.m. for 10, 12 tours to walk in that day? And how about the team that's up there? Do you have a trained and knowledgeable team ready to open the front door for those parents? I know I walk into schools and I train all the time, and you guys will tell me absolutely never does anybody ever sit up at the front desk that is not a member of the management team. Okay, and I say hats off to you. But for those of you who lived in a world like I did, let's talk about the time that the bus driver calls out, the toddler teacher's in the kitchen, and it's 7 a.m. and you got to get on a bus. Who's sitting up front? For me, it was always my preschool teacher. She sat up front for me so I could get on the bus. That was just the world I lived in. Or, it's 5:55 on a Friday night and every other management team has gone home. I need to run to the restroom. Somebody's up there for me. So I just want you to think about those instances. When you walk away from the front, who is sitting up there? Do they have all of the same knowledge that you do, or do they have a good statement that they can say, my director just walked away, she'll be right back, or my assistant director just jumped on a bus run, but she should be back in 5 minutes. Is there anything I can, who's up there giving people the information? And even if it is a management team member, directors, assistant directors, do you believe that all 4 or 5 of you up there are really, you all believe in it, you're all as trained as you need to be, and you all have the same understanding of what should happen on that tour? This one's kind of tough, and I know it's controversial, but be prepared to reschedule. Not on your scheduled tours. I really don't want you, if you booked a tour with them, please make it work. But those walk-in tours, like I said, I mean, a lot of us are open 6:30 a.m. to 6:30 p.m. And not every time in that day is going to be a great time for me to show you my building. It's just not going to, you're not going to see what you need to see. If you walk in at 5:50 on a Friday night, you're not going to see your lead teacher. You're not going to see curriculum in action. You're going to see the classrooms combined. It's really not my best showing. So are you prepared to reschedule if necessary and say, you know what, if 5:50 on a Friday is the best time for you, let me just work some things out and make sure that the teacher can be here next Friday to meet you. I mean, how many times have you, maybe not a lot, but have you ever walked into a restaurant and the chairs are stacked and the servers are rolling silver and they're cleaning with bleach and it's like, ugh, I don't want to be here. That's kind of how it feels, and I wish that those hostesses would just tell me, look, we're shutting down and you're more than welcome to be here, but just so you know, this is what you're walking into. So, just be prepared to reschedule if you need to. And I think if you can phrase it the right way, parents are going to be okay with that. You're not going to close every deal at those inopportune times. It's better to reschedule. All right. Also on the be prepared front, before your tours, whether they're scheduled or walk-in, I want you to be thinking, what's your objective here? What are you trying to get out of this particular meeting or tour with this parent? In the sales world, we call this pre-call planning. You can't necessarily do a pre-tour plan for a walk-in tour. It'll be a very quick one. But really, you're just trying to go over, what are my objectives? What do I need to get out of this? And then at the end, you do what's called the debrief. And I did put a handout in your handout session of GoToWebinar so that you guys can see it. I did a post-tour debrief so that you can take it and after these tours say, yes, I checked off all the bullets I needed to check, or hey, here's some things I missed and here's how I can get better. But before you start walking around, think about what you need to get out of this tour. Who's participating? What are their roles? And let's just talk about who the participants are. I mean down to who's opening the door. What do you expect from the person opening the door and greeting the parent? How about the teacher in the classroom? What are you expecting from that teacher? The food service specialist or your chef, do you expect them to participate? And the parents are participants too. So what do you need to get from that parent? What's everybody's role here? Do I need any more information? For my, scheduled tours, of course I went into my CRM system, I looked at the notes, I have all the descriptions, and I know that I'm still missing X, Y, and Z, and I got to get my hands on that. If it's a walk-in tour, you need a ton of information. But if it's a scheduled tour, don't just hand them the same generic piece of paper. They've already given you some of that. So why don't you take it upon yourself to bring them into the office, pull up the account, and see what we need to get next. You guys that have been to the doctor's office, it's annoying. Every time you walk in there, you give them the same information on 18 different pieces of paper. Don't do that to your parents. They're just burnt out from that. And then again, if it's a scheduled tour, let's think about any roadblocks that we already know of. Use those notes that you gathered to say, okay, I know that this parent has issues with ratios, that they have their toddler's been bitten 6 times at their last center. Oh, we've got a peanut allergy I need to be aware of. These are roadblocks for me that I have to get around and talk about. So don't avoid them, hit them right on, but be aware before you start this tour of what they are. Don't be caught off guard. And then I think most importantly, how are you going to ask for the yes or for the no or for the clear next step? That is one of your objectives of this tour. Before you even start, you should be thinking, how am I going to end this? How am I going to ask for the enrollment? What's the best way to go about this? So if they tell you that they need to start 11 months from now, getting to a yes is a little bit different than somebody who says, I need to start in 3 weeks. So you'll know that information because you're getting it from them in the very beginning of the tour. So use it to say, how am I going to phrase this ask for the enrollment piece? Because I know I have to do it. All right. The next part I'm going to talk to you about is the upfront contract. And if you have been on any of these webinars with me, I want to apologize because I preach the upfront contract every chance I get. But I'm telling you, it has changed the way I sell, and I wish I could go back to every tour and do it. So if you've got a pen and a paper, I want you to write down A-N-O-T. A-NOT, okay? So let's talk about why the upfront contract is so important. In the world of buyers and sellers, at some point, somebody told us as consumers that we need to not tell salespeople anything. that they will take it and take advantage of it. And then somebody told us as salespeople that we need to not tell you consumers anything because you'll ask for our bottom line and you'll ask for a promotion and a discount. So we all kind of hold our cards to our chest and we don't really share anything. But especially when you're talking about touring a child care center, that cannot exist. We need to drop that front and really communicate to get the best outcome that either we're a good solution for your family or we're not. So the upfront contract is going to help you diffuse some of that. And really what it stands for in the best way I know how is appreciate, naturally, obviously, typically. These are the kind of the components of an upfront contract. I'm going to show you kind of what it looks like in action. It is something you have to practice. It is not natural. It does not roll off your tongue, but you can rephrase it, make it sound a little bit more like you. All right, so an upfront contract sounds something like this. So again, you're going to say, thank you so much for coming to visit Lucky Learners today. I appreciate you being here. That sounds so obvious, right? I appreciate that you came in today. But it's really important, and a lot of people forget to do that step, to say, hey, thanks so much for coming. I really appreciate you being here. Then you have to get the time frame out of the way. So if it's a scheduled tour, I want you to say, hey, last time we talked, we thought, about 30 minutes seemed about right. Is that still a good time frame for you? Or if it's a walk-in tour, I want you to say, typically our tours around here take about 30 minutes. Is that something that you can accommodate today? The reason it's so important that you get that agenda or the time in there is because what happens if you are expecting that this is a 30-minute tour and 15 minutes in, Dad takes a call and says, okay, we got to go, just give me the paperwork. Well, you didn't even get to what you needed to get to, or if you had known it was a 15-minute tour, you would have either rescheduled or you would have gone down that road a whole lot quicker with him. So you really have to get the agenda out of the way. So thank you so much for coming in to look around. I appreciate you being here. Is 30 minutes still a good time for you? And here's the contract piece of it. So you want to say something like, naturally, you're going to have a lot of questions about our programs, our teachers, our curriculum. Obviously, I want to be sure that we're the best fit for you, so I'm going to have some questions for you. Is that okay? Or, just something in there that says, I want to make sure that I'm the best fit for you. I'm asking you permission to ask you questions so that you're not caught off guard when I ask you things on this tour. I'm asking permission right here. Naturally, you'll want to know how I'm going to be the best fit. Obviously, I'm going to want to make sure I get all those questions addressed. And then here's where you diffuse the resistance at the very end when you ask for the enrollment. You're going to end this thing and say, typically it makes sense at the end of our tour to just come back up to my office and talk about what the next steps for Sophie might be. Is that okay with you? So before you even walk around, you're telling this parent, hey, I'm going to have questions for you. You're going to have questions for me. We need to have open dialogue. And then at the end, we are going to have a conversation about what comes next. So it's not going to catch them off guard when at the end of that tour, you bust out the registration information and the rate sheets. They're expecting it. You told them it was going to happen. So if there's nothing else you take from this meeting, I really want you to practice this upfront contract. Get it in verbiage that sounds good to you and is a little bit more natural, but appreciate, naturally, obviously, and typically. That's what I want you to remember, okay? All right, so next I need you to build your customer profile, okay? So when you are asking permission to ask questions, put that somewhere. Do something with it. If you've had phone calls with them in the past, don't ignore what they've told you. So you need to start building the who, what, why, when, how of that person, do their needs assessment. And I definitely want you to sell them on your best features, but I need you to guide it in a direction that's for their needs. So if they told you that ratios were an issue and you really love your splash pad, I know you don't want to ignore the splash pad. So talk about the ratios on the splash pad, okay? If they told you that menu was a really big issue to them, but you really want to talk about the curriculum, well, then talk about the healthy eating portion of your curriculum. But what I'm saying is I don't want you to ignore the things that you love and really believe in your building. I just want you to spin it and remember that if they told you that ratios and menus were the most important thing to them, you better make sure that whole tour is about ratios and menus in some form or fashion, because that's what's important to them. Outside play, not so much important to them. The curriculum in the classroom, maybe a little bit important, but they didn't even mention it. The worst thing you can do on any sales call or tour is to ask a parent all these questions, get them to answer you, and then never address them. It just makes them feel like you didn't hear them, you didn't care about it. And the easiest way to sell something is, I'm telling you, if you can find the number one pain and just talk about that. You guys, when I do demos sometimes, if somebody tells me that email communication is the worst thing for them, I don't even talk about adding tasks and follow-ups and running reports. I ignore all of that, and we're going to spend 45 minutes talking about emails and the marketing center, and that's easy to do. And at the end of it, they buy. I'm just telling you that that's the kind of mindset you have to go in. As much as you love your splash pad, unless you can spin it, don't talk about it. All right, so let's talk about how you ask the questions and how you get the information that you need in order to close this deal on the first try. All right, so of course we're going to ask who needs care, what kind of care do we need, why are you here today, what's the schedule that you're needing, and how soon do you need it? So those are the kind of questions that you guys are already asking in your TOR needs analysis, but I want you to go a little bit deeper on these. I said, you know, never interrupt. That's on the slide, but I don't mean that I think any of you are actually interrupting. What I think we do as directors, because we're caregivers, we just want to take care of people the best we can, is that we'll ask a question like, hey, what's bringing you into Lucky Learners today? And they'll say, well, we're just not so happy with the ratio at the other school. And you'll immediately jump to, oh, we run 2 lower than state. What's next? What I want you to do is dig a little deeper on that. So if a parent says, yeah, we're just not super happy with the ratio at our other school, you can just say things like, has it always been that way? Well, no, it hasn't. You know, we really liked the infant program, and then as we moved to toddlers, it seemed to get higher, and then the 2-year-olds, it just seemed to get out of control and not manageable. So when you say out of control and not manageable, what have you been experiencing? Well, I don't know, it just seems like there's been a lot of teacher turnover, and we loved our toddler teacher, but then there was a new director. So what I'm saying is, if you just dig a little bit deeper with some open-ended questions, all of a sudden you're going to know so much more about what's really bugging them. It's not just the high ratios. It's that the teacher turnover has been a problem, and that there's been a new director in there, and things have just changed. So then you know that not only do you need to talk about low ratios, but you can talk about your teacher tenure and how long they've been there. And you do that by not band-aiding so quickly. When they say that, you know, the menu is a problem, don't just answer. I want you to just dig a little bit further. In the sales world, it's called the pain funnel. So if the overriding pain is the biggest part, I'm just going to take it until it's down, 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 super tiny, and I can pinpoint exactly what their problem is. So think about your conversations in the very beginning of the tour with a parent just like that. One of the easiest ways to do it, if you see it on the screen, it just says, oh. Anytime I get stuck, because open-ended questions are kind of hard to come up with on the fly unless you've been practicing. So that question, oh, it is kind of my backup. So if somebody says something like, yeah, I don't know, it's just really changed over the last couple of years. Oh, yeah, you know, we loved the menu when we first started and blah, 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 blah. So I'm just saying, oh is really it lets you off the hook. You don't have to think of anything super creative. And it is a little bit awkward because you have to go, oh, and then pause. And then the parent realizes, like, oh, it's my turn in this conversation. So use it. And then clarifying answers before you reply. It just, again, lets that parent know that you've listened to them, that you heard what they said. It's, again, not a very common thing to do, but if you just clarify what they're saying or restate it in another way, it just makes somebody feel like you heard them and you know what to talk about and you know where to take them next. So I want to talk to you about the importance of how soon. So when you're asking how soon do you need care, a parent who tells you that they're looking for the summer, that's a parent who's very rational. It's going to take a longer time to follow up with them. I'm not saying you can't close the deal today. You can. But they're making a rational decision. That's a fact-based parent. They need proof that you are the absolute best. That's why they're doing this research so far ahead of time. So you still need to be, you know, catering to them, but keep in mind that it may not be the super warm fuzzies that they're looking for. They're looking for fact-based answers as to why they should enroll their child with you if they're looking months down the road, besides the pregnant moms. I realize that that's different, but you know, everybody else, if they're looking months down the road, that's a fact-based, very rational parent. A parent who walks in and tells you that they need care in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, that's a parent who's really emotional. Something has changed in their life. You know, they got a new job. They lost a job. Something terrible just happened at their preschool, and they need to get out now. So that's a very emotional parent. Your job there is different. It's not to throw a ton of facts at them. It's to make them feel safe. That's the best thing you could do for these families. Not that you're not going to be nurturing to the other parent, but this one just needs a little bit more warm fuzzies. So keep that in mind when you're not just asking what their intended start date is for your own convenience or to see if you even have space. It's so that you know how you're going to talk to them and what you're going to be presenting to them. Next step. Sometimes the hardest part, I know that. It was never my favorite thing to do. I always avoided it like the plague, asking for the enrollment, okay? You all know that you're supposed to be doing it at the end of the tours. If I asked you right now to tell me if you did it 100% of the time, not everybody would raise their hand. It is really the hardest part. Can I encourage you to start and end every tour in the director's office, even if you're the assistant director giving the tour? I think doing it at that front desk, it doesn't allow for a lot of intimacy. You can't ask some hard-hitting questions. You can't really have the budget conversation very well. So if you can start in the director's office, ask all those questions that you need to ask, and then come right back in there, it's easier to ask for the enrollment. The other thing is if you did your upfront contract, remember that at the very beginning you told them this part's coming. So don't be shocked when I ask you if you're ready to enroll. So a couple things to consider. Again, I know that a lot of us, we don't want to be salespeople. We don't want to be pushy or aggressive, but there is a certain sector of people out there, namely dads, to be honest with you, that if you don't ask them if they want to enroll, if you don't ask them for their business, it almost puts them off, like you don't want their business. So just keep that in mind, that you think you're not being pushy, and some people can take it the other way, like you're not interested in doing business with me or having my child here. So it can seem kind of cold. If you cannot get the enrollment, I want you, no matter what, to get a clear next step. What I want you to stop doing today is that thing where we say, okay, do you have any questions? And they say, I need to go home and talk it over with Dad. And you say, great, give me a call if you think of anything. That's what we're all doing, and I want us to stop. What I want you to do is flip the script. Remember that this parent is a participant in this tour. There are some things that they owe you as the participant too. And one of those is a next step. And all you have to do is say, I totally understand. Look, it's going to be really crazy around here next week. We have conferences going on. We're planning for summer camp. It's going to be really busy. Why don't we just go ahead and get something on the calendar? Is Tuesday at 10 a.m. okay? Can I call you then? Let me just put it on our calendar right now. I just don't want to miss it. First of all, you're going to seem like a consummate professional. No other director or assistant director is going to do that. And you're just getting a next step with them. They may not be giving you an enrollment, but you're getting a time to talk to them for sure next week or in the next couple of days. I get busy, you get busy. Look for my phone call 10 a.m. on Tuesday. Okay, so that's a clear next step. The other one, again, a little controversial, and for my owners on the call, I apologize. But decisions are good, guys. You need a decision. You need a clear next step of where you're going, or you need somebody to say yes or say no. And no is still a decision. What I don't want you to do as a director or an assistant director is to have what I call hopium, that every tour is going to enroll. It's just not the case. So it would be so much easier, you guys, if you could just get them to tell you no right then and there. No, it's out of budget, or no, it's a little too far, or, you know, whatever. Even on that follow-up call, no is still a decision, and it lets you off the hook. You don't have to keep chasing people that you shouldn't be chasing in the first place. So don't be afraid to get them. And those of you who are using CRM, don't be afraid to move somebody to lost opportunity. If you really feel like they're not going to enroll, move them over and then pull them back anytime you want. But, you know, just get to the next step. Don't keep yourself in purgatory. This is one I use all the time, but it is true. A lot of the sales are lost because nobody even bothered to ask, because you guys did that, and I did it all the time. No problem. Call me if you have any questions. And then I didn't follow up. I didn't ask for a next step. Nothing else happened, so it just died on the vine there. So really be thinking about these things. You want to get to a clear next step. It's as easy as saying, it gets really busy around here. You're going to be busy. What's the best time for me to call you next week? Get them to say no, or by all means, get the registration. Really, that upfront contract is going to help you. So I think the best thing to get the yes here, use your upfront contract, ask permission to ask questions. Don't ignore the information they gave you. So again, I'm beating a dead horse here, but if they told you that the menus were the most important thing, you guys spend that 45 minutes hitting on the menus all over the place. That's what you need to do. All right. So even after you get that registration, your job is not done. Okay, let's not forget that. How many of you have gotten a registration form and even a registration check or deposit, and then 2 weeks down the road, they don't show up, or on their start date comes and goes and they don't show up? That's because we all have what's called buyer's remorse, right? So as soon as you buy something, especially if it's a big purchase, no matter how much research you've done on it, it doesn't matter. The minute you sign the check or you swipe your credit card, your gut is like, oh gosh, should I have done that? Do I need to look anywhere else? And what's happening to these parents is, again, the minute they're hitting the door, they're going, okay, we just did that. Is this really going to be the best place for my baby? Maybe I should look at one more place. Or you know what's happening, you guys? Other CRM users are sending them post-tour drip campaign emails. So they're getting a little bit of information about other schools that they may have ignored or not enrolled at. And something's going to trigger them to say, let me just go look one more place. The other thing that happens to you guys that you might need to be aware of is, let's think about your situation. When somebody walks in and gives you a 2-week notice, what's the protocol at your school? If it's not a crazy parent or a delinquent account, my owners, the protocol was, if somebody gives you a 2-week notice, you try to save it. And that's what a lot of other directors are doing. It's so much easier for them to keep somebody enrolled and move them to a different classroom or make an accommodation than to try to find another prospective parent. So what will happen is they'll register with you, they'll go back to their old school, the director will change things around, make them happy, and then they just never show up for you. So I've had a couple of you that have done something kind of crazy, but it's worked very well, so something to think about. When somebody comes in and gives you a 2-week notice and they are unhappy at another location, how much would it really cost you in the long run if you told them, you know what, I just want to make sure that Sophie's in the best place. Why don't you guys go ahead and start here anytime, and we'll waive your 2 weeks notice, or we'll waive whatever it is. It's not going to cost you anything to do that, really, in the long run, when you think about what a child tuition is over the course of their lifetime with you. And it stops the other director from being able to save that family and get them back in her good graces. So that's something to think about. But the best thing you can do really is to just praise their decision. So to tell them, this is going to be the best fit for Sophie. You're going to love it here. In that waiting period, send her pictures from the classroom. Hey, we're just waiting on Sophie. Here's what you missed today. Can't wait to have you on, March 1st or May 1st or whatever. Schedule parent orientations. Do those things while they're waiting so that they're not forgetting about you. They're not losing excitement. The buzz is not going anywhere. So there's just little ways that you can do this. So I think we've gone through everything. So to review, we're going to be prepared. We are going to believe, well, first we're going to believe before we're prepared. We're going to believe in what we're selling. We're going to believe that our center is the best. Then we're going to be prepared to sell it. So we're going to set reminders for ourselves. We're going to be stocked and ready. We're going to have the best of everybody sitting at the front desk. Every participant is going to know their roles. We're going to do our upfront contract, ask permission to get some questions answered. Use those questions in my tour for sure. And then at the end, I'm going to bring them right back up to the office, and I'm going to ask for the enrollment, say, are you ready to register? And if their answer is no, I need to talk it over with Dad, you're going to say, no problem. Things get busy here. How does next Monday at 9 a.m. look for you? Let's get it on the calendar. You're going to get a clear next step. And then if they do and when they do register, you're going to spend that next 3-4 weeks just reinforcing that they made the best decision. There is nowhere else that they would rather be. We can't wait to have you here. That's what you're going to do in order to close this tour a lot faster and get that 0 to 3, 4 to 7 days down to 60 minutes. They're going to call you right back and say, we're ready to register, okay? I'm going to throw my information up on the screen. A lot of you already have this, but if you have any questions or you want to talk some kind of one-on-one salesy stuff with me, I'm more than happy to do it. This is my cell phone and my email address, so go ahead and write those down. Again, you have a handout in your handout section for a post-tour debrief. I think these are great to do and review at the end of the month or the end of the week. The questions and answers section is still open, so if you've got anything you want to know, throw it in there. If not, thank you so much for coming. I think this was one of our best webinars that we've done, so I'm very excited about it. It will be sent out. The recording will be sent out here within the day, so hang tight. You'll get that, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the road, talking to you soon. Thanks, guys.